Alright, hey guys, IDSG here, and welcome to my third episode of How to Use, in which I'll be teaching you guys how to use every single item in the Hypixel Bedwars shop. And this episode will be covering the fireball in the utility section. I'll be showing you guys how all the cool tips and strategies you can use with this item, and all the neat things you can do with it. So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to leave a like and comment and subscribe if you do. And don't forget to, if you're leaving a comment, but don't forget to request a item for next week. Well, not next week. I usually do these every 2 weeks, so I'll be trying to keep that up. Anyways, on to the video. Okay, so welcome to how to use the fireball. And just like last time and every other time, I'll be going over the same few categories as I do with every single of these how to use videos. So first I'll be giving a brief overview of the item, then I'll be discussing what this item pairs well with, some tactics you can use with this item, and then I'll be talking about the ideal placement of the item if it's a placeable item, and I'll discuss what game modes it works well in, and the necessity of the item. And lastly, I'll give a overall rating of the item at the end. Okay, so a brief overview of the fireball. It's a item found in the utility section and is the fire charge icon. It costs 40 iron to buy, and its lore is right click to launch. Great to knock back enemies walking on thin bridges. As for what this item pairs well with, it pairs well with literally anything. But I can't name anything it doesn't pair well with. Okay, now let's go into some of the tactics you can use with this item. So, offensively, you can use the fireball to launch yourself by shooting below or behind you, past the enemy team as you're both along a bridge. Now, this allows you to get a better position to either kill them, or run past them, or to get their bed. If an opposing team tries to gain the height advantage on you while on a bridge, so like they start placing blocks in front of you, start staircasing, or doing whatever, then you could just fireball jump over them and knock them right off if you react in time. And this would completely turn the table on them and give you the advantage instead of them. But most players that are already familiar with the game are at least they know of the fireball jump, so be careful and don't expect it to always work. If the opposing team that you're trying to go for has a defense that's vulnerable to fireballs, which is basically clay, wool, or wood, so if they use any of those blocks, that could be destroyed by a fireball. So what you can do is just straight up fireball the bed to expose it, and this will make it easier for you or your teammates to break the bed, because you don't need to actually use a tool to break it. In team game modes, you can actually set one person to support you from the back, or like from your base or something, by launching a fireball at their vulnerable bed defense, while you go in and break their bed as the bed is exposed. Now this is given that they don't have like a super thick bed defense, filled with like 17 layers of wool or wood. I don't know. But like, even on invulnerable bed defenses that use fireball resistant material, like endstone, glass, or obsidian, this tactic could still help you get the bed if you aim the fireball to launch the enemy players off the edge instead, or just away from the person going in. So that person breaking the bed has a window of opportunity to actually break it, and gives them enough time. Another thing you can do is use the fireball to intentionally kill opposing players that are running back to their base to store resources. Now this prevents them from getting way too stacked in the middle of the game, and the best time to do this is when your opponents are running back from middle with like a bunch of emeralds. So like, say you see when your opponent's running to mid, keep a note on that. Then you see him like come back like 2 minutes later, like they're running along the bridge, and what you can do is just fireball him because you know he has emeralds. You know he has emeralds. You cannot afford to let an enemy team get emeralds. especially a lot of emeralds, because that can put you in a really bad position. Because they can buy invisibility, they can buy pearls, they can buy whatever they want. Like, okay, if they buy diamond armor, I guess it's not that bad of a situation. But anyways, if the opponents don't throw off their items into the void in time, it means that you actually get the items from the kill, which will put you in a much stronger position against them. If you manage to break an opposing team's bed, but you just can't seem to beat them in PvP, then you could use the fireball to help you eliminate them from the game. So, like, what I mean is, you just can't beat them in like a 1v1, you're getting combo, you're getting owned, and you can rely on the fireball to try to help you eliminate them from the game. So if your opponent's like running along a bridge, you can aim the fireball so that it hits right in front of where your opponent's gonna go, which can send them directly into the void if they do not realize that you threw a fireball and react accordingly. And if you're in the middle of a 1v1 with them and are in a losing position, like you're getting comboed, or you just have less hearts than them, you can always launch a fireball in their face to at least get some space between you two, and allow yourself to get a better position. And if they're close to the edge, this tactic would have just sent them right off the edge if you positioned correctly. So if they're the ones closer to the void and you shoot them in the face with a fireball, then they'll most likely go into the void. But be mindful of opposing fireballs too, and the best way you can predict or guess if an opponent has a fireball is if they start to position themselves in a way which will knock you off if they have a fireball. So like, what I mean is mostly on a bridge. You can't really detect if someone has a fireball, like if you're in the middle of like a 1v1, but if you're like running to someone along a bridge and they're on like a opposing island, then there's a chance they have fireball if they position themselves in a certain way. So it's usually a red flag, and you should be ready to dodge the fireball at any moment. So like what I'm like talking about is basically draw a line from where their head is to like where they're looking. If they're looking like directly at you or like in front of you, then you know if they're like on the left or right side of that bridge, they probably have a fireball, and they're probably about to shoot it right in front of where you are. And be prepared to either dodge it or just do something about it. So defensively, if a team has a high ground on you while you're defending your bed, you can always use a fireball to knock the opposing team down from their perch and onto your bed. Be sure to aim it correctly though, since the fireball has a pretty hefty price tag of 40 iron. You really want to make sure that you get them down with the fireballs you have on you. And most of the time, players will build thin bridges out of wool, since it's cheap. So to knock them down with the fireball is fairly easy if you're looking at the right angle. So try to hit your opponents from the left or right side, and choose a side that's not closest to your base and closest to the void, and fire at the blocks they're standing on. And most of the time, this will ensure that your opponents are actually hit off the edge and into the void, as long as you hit it correctly and don't overpredict the movements of your opponents. And if you can't get that ideal angle to knock them off into the void, try to at least make sure you knock them down to your island, so that, like, if you're right below them. This makes it so that you are fighting on an equal or near equal Y level, so that you have an easier time dealing with them. And this also makes sure that your opponents take fall damage if they don't use anything like ladders or water to save themselves. If you're dealing with TNT droppers, fireballing them down will still help you deal with the situation better and throw your opponents way off guard, especially if they didn't place the TNT yet. But you can't forget that if they didn't place their TNT yet, and they can still destroy your bed with that TNT. And if that's the case, then target the person holding TNT. You can tell if someone's holding a TNT if they have a red particle over their head. Like that will always show. There's always a red particle over their head if an opponent or any player has a TNT on them. And you better hope that you can kill them in time before they place it down, or else you'll probably be in trouble. If the opposing team has already placed the TNT and exposed your benefit, like before you shot them down with a fireball, then you can use the fireball that you have to blast your opponents away and potentially off the edge if you shoot it onto your bed as they drop down. And be sure to target the person trying to break your bed first, since they are a much bigger priority than getting rid of the person that's probably trying to distract you. And destroying your own bed defense sounds stupid at first, but it's a lot better than having no bed at all. So basically you're fireballing your own bed defense because it's already been exposed and it's basically already ruined. And if you fireball your own bed defense, then you can always rebuild it if you survive the attack, and it gives you a much greater chance of keeping your bed further into the game if you pull it off successfully. Now for some evasive tactics. While you try to evade your opponents, you can once again utilize that fireball jump that I discussed earlier to escape a situation and make jumps that you otherwise couldn't without a fireball or TNT. And this allows you to survive for longer and forces your opponent to waste more time building a bridge if you don't have a fireball or TNT or pearl to get to you or kill you. So what I mean is basically use the fireball jump in a way to get more distance with your opponent. So if someone's chasing you, then you can fireball jump right behind you to create a gap in the bridge and escape further ahead on the bridge. And if you're like at the end of a bridge and you see that the bridge is not quite complete and you can't make that jump to the other island, but you know that you can with a fireball or TNT, then you can you turn around, use that fireball to blast yourself across the gap and leave your opponent behind, especially if you don't have a fireball or TNT of their own. If you see your opponents running along a bridge to get to you, you can always fireball them into the void to at least buy you some more time to get geared up enough to fight back against them. And don't be afraid to fireball spam in dire situations, because if you position the fireballs correctly and can consecutively hit your opponent until they're off the edge, then yeah, then it works out. So, and don't feel bad for it, because when you don't have a bed, that's all you can really do to win the match. Yeah, you have to play, you have to play really dirty if you want to win sometimes, especially if you're playing a ranked match or playing in a tournament, where you literally have to win to do good. As for the ideal placement of this item, to kill someone along a bridge, position yourself at an angle which would aim the fireball towards the left or right side of your opponent, depending on which side would knock them off, ideally into the void. If you can't obtain that angle, then you can try to aim the fireball below your opponents to knock them down onto you if they have the high ground and you're right below them. And this will give you a much higher health advantage against them, and if they can't negate their fall damage. If your opponent can't be knocked off the edge or knocked down because of a wall behind them, then you can try shooting the fireball so that it hits the blocks your opponent is backed up to. So like, okay, what I mean by this is you can shoot the fireball basically at their back, which would cause them to launch forward, and if it's done correctly, which can ruin their positioning and like really mess them up, because that allows you to fight them much easier. And if you want to fireball jump, then aim the fireball directly below you if you want to gain height with the fireball and reach higher ground. and aim the fireball directly behind you as you jump back to launch yourself backwards. If you want to, yeah, go backwards onto another platform or island, or just like somewhere else along a bridge. Also, I should probably add that fireball jumping and TNT jumping have different distances, and TNT jumping actually shoots you farther than a fireball jump. So basically, one TNT shoots you farther and higher than one fireball. Now, as for what game modes this item works well in, it works well in all game modes, even the 4v4 game mode. The only thing that keeps this thing actually balanced is the price tag of 40 iron. Otherwise, it would be way too good. But this makes it a more viable choice in 3s and 4s rather in solo and doubles, especially early game, because 3s and 4s have a faster generator in all the maps than in solo and doubles, where most of the maps have slow generators. Now, as for the necessity of this item, it's incredibly useful and versatile in many situations, but its price tag makes it a very poor decision to buy most of the time in the early game. But once you obtain a good amount of iron from killing other teams or just sitting at your base for a long time, the fireball actually becomes a pretty good purchase that can help you win the game. And given a dire situation, this item can actually save you or your bed if you use it right. And I find that it becomes a very valuable purchase, especially for evasion. And stockpiling up your iron until the moment that your bed is popped allows you to buy a whole arsenal of fireballs that you can use to survive and escape your opponents, when you can do little else. Now, overall, this is a very, very good item in the utility section of the item shop that works for very many situations. And it's a very versatile and useful item because of that reason. But rushing fireballs early game will usually not work out for you, especially in solos and doubles, since that iron can be used on more viable things in the early game, such as tools and blocks. But if you can afford its hefty price tag, though, it can actually be a lifesaver and a game changer if you use it properly, and you should always be mindful of this item in any Bedwars match. It is very relevant in the meta. And with that, that wraps up this episode of How to Use. And thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like and comment down what item you want me to cover in the utility sections next. There's still a bunch of items left to go before we move on to the, I think it's the weapons or the tools? I don't remember. But yeah, comment down what utility item you want me to cover next, and yeah, don't subscribe as well. So don't stop gaming, guys. Peace out.